Many teenagers choose idols from the ranks of the famous and popular. On one hand, this isn't inherently bad, especially if the focus is on positive traits like determination or a charismatic personality. But what happens when a young person is fascinated by serial killers, idolizes maniacs, and glorifies violent crimes? What if that teenager wants to become one of them? Sarah was born in 2002 in Switzerland. Later, she moved to Bavaria, Germany. Due to the country's strict confidentiality laws, particularly concerning criminals, her exact identity remains undisclosed. In the media, she is referred to as Sarah M. Her childhood appeared to be entirely ordinary. She had caring and loving parents who maintained a good relationship with her. Sarah performed well in school, was diligent, and had many friends. She loved animals and even had a small pet rabbit. At that time, there was nothing unusual about her life, nothing that would suggest a thirst for blood. In her teenage years, like many adolescents, Sarah became rebellious. She began skipping school and developed interests that her parents didn't approve of. Many of her friends and acquaintances noticed that she became hostile and aggressive. This led to conflicts in her social circles, often instigated by Sarah herself. At times, she acted arrogantly, but in candid moments, she confessed to feeling unwanted and lonely. Unable to find a way out of her situation, Sarah became increasingly withdrawn and more hostile toward those around her. During this time, she began to exhibit sadistic behavior. If someone displeased her, she would torment and bully them, seemingly deriving pleasure from it. Sarah stopped adhering to the school dress code, opting instead for ripped jeans and an aggressive makeup style. She resembled a stereotypical heavy metal fan. Her conservative acquaintances began to suspect her of satanic worship because of her appearance. When classmates asked why she dressed this way, the rebellious Sarah would reply that she could afford it because she made a lot of money by selling her body. Of course, this was a lie. Sarah simply craved attention and often used radical, shocking behavior to achieve it. She was willing to be rude or even initiate physical altercations to ensure all eyes were on her. Initially, her behavior seemed like a typical adolescent rebellion that manifests differently in everyone. However, the situation escalated significantly and spiraled out of control when Sarah turned 16. During this time, she began experimenting with illegal substances. She started with lighter drugs but quickly progressed to harder substances. Eventually, she developed a severe addiction to toxic substances, which drew the attention of authorities. Sarah was detained and charged with drug use. During her arrest, she behaved extremely aggressively, insulting officers, attacking law enforcement, and attempting to harm them physically. Following this incident, her situation worsened further. Sarah began self-harming. She made no attempt to hide this behavior from her family or friends. Her arms were covered in cuts, causing her parents great distress. One day, her parents entered her room and found a rope hanging from the ceiling. This was the breaking point, prompting them to admit Sarah to a psychiatric hospital. There, she underwent evaluations and was held for extended treatment. Doctors diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder and hallucinations triggered by substance abuse. They also identified several milder emotional disorders. Specialists began treatment immediately, but Sarah's stay at the hospital was far from smooth. At one point, it was discovered that she had attempted to persuade another patient to end their own life. Fortunately, the patient managed to resist the impulse, but the incident deeply alarmed the hospital staff. As a result, her treatment was extended. It is believed that psychiatrists noticed her worsening condition and recognized the danger of releasing such a patient. Sarah spent several months in the specialized facility due to her destructive behavioral tendencies. Over the next few years, she frequently returned to psychiatric hospitals. This continued until she turned 17, but nothing seemed to help. Sarah developed a dark and twisted obsession with serial killers. She devoted all her free time to watching series and crime documentaries about the most shocking cases of extreme violence. Her favorite serial killers were Ted Bundy and Richard Ramirez. She became particularly fixated on Ramirez. Posters of Richard Ramirez adorned her bedroom walls. His face was the wallpaper on her mobile phone, while Ted Bundy's image was the screensaver on her computer. On her social media accounts, Sarah frequently posted about serial killers, emphasizing the passionate feelings they evoked in her. She shared her thoughts on the lives of murderers, speculating, for example, that Jack the Ripper was a woman. This character became one of her focal points. Sarah wanted to kill. Like her idol Richard Ramirez, she drew a pentagram on her palm. In Germany, strict laws prohibit the use of certain symbols. This act could have landed her in prison for 3 years. However, she was never caught with the symbol visible on her hand. Her behavior grew increasingly alarming, worrying her family and acquaintances. Her obsession escalated to the point where Sarah began contemplating a chilling question. What would it feel like to become a world-famous serial killer? The schoolgirl clearly wanted attention by any means necessary. However, this grew into a pathological obsession. Despite all these crazy ideas, at 17 the girl got a boyfriend. His name was Leon, but no exact information about him or his age could be determined. Again, this was due to very strict legislation regarding confidentiality in Germany. Like his girlfriend, the boyfriend struggled with mental disorders. He already had a criminal record, and also suffered from an addiction to psychoactive substances. Sarah fell head over heels in love with the young criminal, who seemed like the right guy for her. He became her first man. The teenagers spent all their free time together. During this period, the girl became literally obsessed with sex. However, at first, this suited both young people quite well. They seemed to be a very harmonious couple. Later, Leon learned about her obsession with serial killers but did not pay much attention to it. He also accepted another dangerous trait of his beloved. Sarah could explode out of nowhere and struggled to control her aggression. She tried her best to make their sexual relationship more extreme. She asked him to hit and choke her. The level of violence in their relationship gradually increased. With each time, she wanted more brutality and violence. She started filming their sexual acts on video. Their relationship lasted about a year and a half. Gradually, Leon became less comfortable with such a crazy girl. Ultimately, he broke up with his girlfriend, which was a real blow for Sarah. She sincerely believed that she would always be with her boyfriend. He broke her heart. However, the girl's cruel nature did not allow her to simply let go of her ex-boyfriend. She craved revenge. Therefore, Sarah began spreading rumors among friends and acquaintances. She accused her boyfriend of cruelty and even rape. She complained that Leon had posted her intimate photographs online. This attracted more attention, which the heroine of the story loved so much. But in reality, no one believed the girl. Everyone knew that this was just another attempt to draw attention to herself. This angered her even more. It was after this that the rebel decided that her ex-boyfriend needed to be killed. However, she did not just want revenge, she wished to execute hundreds of people. The schoolgirl literally came to hate men. Thus, she decided to lure them into traps and kill them. The young woman targeted those who even vaguely reminded her of Leon. By April 2021, Sarah's anger had reached its peak. Only a month after her breakup with her boyfriend, she went to a hardware store with her friend Franziska. There, she purchased a massive 30-centimeter knife. Since Sarah was underage at the time, she couldn't make the purchase alone without raising suspicion. At this stage, her older adult friend was essential to help acquire the weapon. With Franziska's assistance, Sarah successfully purchased the knife. She considered it her preferred weapon for executing men. After acquiring her murder weapon, Sarah embarked on an extensive online investigation. Over several days, she entered dozens of morbid queries into the search engine. She sought information on how quickly a person could die from a knife wound to the neck, lungs, heart, and other parts of the body. Sarah also researched her favorite serial killers, meticulously studying the details of their victims' deaths. She aimed to understand not only how to kill effectively but also how to evade police detection. Naturally, using a trackable search engine for such questions was reckless, but Sarah wasn't concerned. She also explored who was the most prolific serial killer in terms of victims. This led her to learn about the infamous British doctor and murderer, Harold Shipman, also known as Dr. Death. While he was officially linked to 28 crimes, some sources suggest he may have killed up to 250 people. This staggering body count instantly made him Sarah's favorite serial killer. In addition to her open use of the internet, Sarah made at least 2 more critical mistakes. She declared her intent to surpass Dr. Shipman's record as a serial killer. She immediately shared this ambition with a friend via social media. Later, she told Franziska, the same friend who had helped her purchase the knife. Clearly, Sarah wasn't concerned about maintaining secrecy. She craved fame. At this point, she began planning how to lure her victims. Sarah decided to turn to online dating, creating a profile under the alias Domina Cherry. The name Domina was deliberately chosen, symbolizing dominance. In her view, the internet was the perfect place to make connections while remaining anonymous. She planned to use her online accounts to lure men and kill them. Sarah aimed to take as many lives as possible before being caught. She created profiles on 2 dating websites on April 28, 2021. In her profiles, the young criminal described herself as a 19-year-old, white sexual virgin with an interest in kissing and BDSM. To attract potential victims, she uploaded provocative photos of herself. Unsurprisingly, Her enticing profile, featuring a beautiful 19-year-old virgin and revealing photos, quickly drew attention. She gained dozens of admirers almost instantly. Rather than rush, Sarah decided to carefully select her most suitable victims. Over the next 3 days, her alias, Domina Cherry, engaged with numerous men, trying to identify who would become the first target on her list of serial murders. Her conversations followed a pattern. She claimed to have extensive experience with men but simultaneously maintained she was a virgin. One of the first people Domina spoke with was a man named Sam. After confirming he was of legal age, she arranged to meet him on May 3, 2021. The following day, on May 4th, she quickly set up another meeting with a man known online as Matt. Matt identified himself as a teacher with an interest in unconventional sexual practices. He was captivated by Sarah's interests and photos, suggesting they meet and have an intimate encounter in his car. However, Sarah persuaded him to drive to a secluded countryside house instead, and he agreed. Another man named Anthony scheduled a meeting with her on May 5th. He proposed playing the role of her sexual slave and even offered to gift her his car. It's worth noting that many men she conversed with over those 3 days made similarly extravagant promises. Sarah interacted with 224 potential victims during this period, aiming to kill at least one person daily. However, she made yet another reckless mistake by confessing her plan to a friend. In their conversation, Sarah disclosed that she intended to eliminate each new victim by immobilizing them and slitting their throat. Even at this stage, her friend didn't take her seriously. Familiar with Sarah's attention-seeking tendencies, her friend dismissed her claims as mere exaggerations. After all, pathological liars who thrive on attention are not always taken seriously, particularly when they declare intentions as outrageous as serial murder. During personal correspondence with a girl, another man named Zaid appeared. All that is known about him is that he was an immigrant from Iran who, at the time of meeting Domina, was 39 years old. He moved to Germany in 2014 and had already lived in the country for about 7 years. The man was the oldest among her acquaintances. He told his new friend that he was a member of a large family and had 6 brothers. Zaid moved to the new country after his parents passed away. There, he got a job as a private security guard and spent all his free time playing football, which he absolutely loved. In the spring of 2021, he was browsing dating websites when he came across a stunning photo of Sarah and got to know Domina Cherry. He had always wanted to start a family, and the young beauty's proposition intrigued him. This acquaintance happened on May 1st. He messaged the girl at 10:53 in the morning, and their conversation quickly took off. Zaid mentioned that he owned a car. It is worth noting that among the hundreds of men the girl communicated with, not all of them were scoundrels simply looking to have sex with a 19-year-old virgin. The Iranian immigrant appeared genuinely in love with her and wanted to build a serious relationship. He decided to experiment in his search for a partner. However, at that time he had no idea that he was under a mortal threat. When Sarah found out that he had his own car, she suggested meeting that very night. Around 8 o'clock in the evening, Zaid was supposed to pick her up from the nearest bus stop. Afterward, they were supposed to head to Sarah's cabin, located in a forest outside the city. The budding serial killer planned to spend the rest of the day ironing out the details of her upcoming act. During this period, new sinister search queries appeared in her browser. She wanted to know how long it would take for someone to bleed out and which injuries would cause it. She also looked up the most efficient ways to dispose of a body. During this time, an unexpected visitor appeared at her house. Her ex-boyfriend Leon came to retrieve his belongings. At one point, Sarah felt an urge to kill him on the spot due to a sudden surge of anger. However, anticipating such a turn of events, he brought a friend with him. The friend stayed outside but was instructed to raise the alarm if Leon did not return within 10 minutes. Seeing the man in the yard, Sarah abandoned her idea of killing Leon. By 7:37 in the evening, Domina was already prepared to meet her first victim. At this moment, she messaged 2 of her friends, including the girl who had helped her purchase a knife, detailing where and how she planned to get rid of the man. She asked them to wish her luck. This correspondence deeply alarmed her friend, who realized Sarah's intentions were very serious. The friend understood that knowing about the crime and failing to report it to the police would automatically make her an accomplice. Later, the police proved that Sarah had conducted similar searches online. It is difficult to say how German law would classify such actions, but the friend could not find a definitive answer to this question. In any case, the friend did not report it to the police. Around 8 o'clock, as agreed, Zaid arrived at the bus stop in his car. The charming Domina immediately got into his car. She quickly won him over with her conversation, and they began to flirt. The girl did everything she could to create a comfortable atmosphere and lull her victim into a false sense of security. She mentioned that her cabin in the forest was about a 30-minute drive away, after which she directed him toward the cabin. Zaid had no idea that the entire story was a fabrication. She did not own any cabins or houses outside the city. The criminal's sole goal was to lure her victim as far away from the city as possible to a secluded area, minimizing the chance of drawing attention. After about 30 minutes of driving, they turned onto a dirt road. After driving a short distance into the dense forest, they stopped. Sarah distracted Zaid with her mobile phone before stabbing him in the neck with a 12-inch knife. At that moment, her plans began to fall apart, as the man did not die instantly as she had expected. Instead, the Iranian began to fight back, causing the girl to panic and flee, hoping he would simply bleed out and die. However, he managed to reach the main road they had turned off from. He stepped onto the road and started flagging down cars. Fortunately, the first car that stopped had a nurse inside. This turned out to be a miracle. In critical condition, the man was rushed to the hospital. Unfortunately, he fell into a coma, and doctors fought to save his life. During this time, the aspiring serial killer roamed the city. She returned on foot but was barefoot. Her tights were completely torn. Sarah wandered the streets covered in blood. She aimlessly strolled in this state, ignoring passers-by and muttering to herself. One witness who encountered the girl reported her to the police. This occurred only 37 minutes after her attempt to kill her first victim. When the police arrived following the tip-off, they detained Domina in the nearby town of Ebermannstadt. She was still covered in blood. They tried to understand what had happened to her. The officers even assumed she might have killed someone in self-defense. However, Sarah candidly stated that nothing of the sort had happened. No one had attacked her. She simply wanted to take someone's life. The police were shocked and arrested her. Meanwhile, doctors were desperately fighting for Zaid's life, but he remained in a coma even 2 weeks after the attack. Due to the severity of the wound, his family flew in to see him. His parents and brothers stayed by his side at the hospital, praying for him to wake up and talk to them. Unfortunately, after 19 days in a coma, the man passed away. Sarah's connection to the crime had already been established. Therefore, following the man's death, her charges were upgraded from attempted murder to premeditated murder. Throughout the process, Domina showed no remorse for her victim. She was only upset that she had been captured by law enforcement officers. She lamented her inability to carry out her plan to kill multiple victims. While in prison, the girl wore civilian clothes. She wanted to wear an orange jumpsuit like her idol, but the ones used in Germany were not the same color. Additionally, the suspect requested to have posters of serial killers placed in her cell, but her request was denied. Sarah continued to behave like a madwoman. During a visit from her mother, she once asked her to finish what she had started and kill Leon for her. When the trial began in 2022, the girl showed not the slightest remorse. She openly admitted that she wanted to become a serial killer, claiming she was motivated by her ex-boyfriend Leon, who had dumped her. In revenge, she wanted to kill as many men as possible, one each day. Sarah was upset that her plan had failed so quickly. Later, something unexpected happened for the criminal. The man she blamed for everything, including rape, Leon, appeared to testify. At that moment, she lost control, literally trying to break free from her restraints to tear him apart in the courtroom. But she was restrained. The prosecutor argued that this girl posed a serious threat to society. She openly declared her desire to bring death to innocent people, a statement she had already proven by killing the Iranian immigrant. Sarah's age, barely 18 at the time of the trial, was considered a mitigating factor by the court. She was found guilty of murder and sentenced to only 12 years in prison. Immediately after the sentence was read, she drew a pentagram on her hand and showed it to everyone in the courtroom. In doing so, she mimicked the most famous photograph of Richard Ramirez, who remained her idol. The judge presiding over the case commented as follows: "It is extremely rare for a criminal to kill purely out of a thirst for murder. This is one such case." The next person to appear in court in this case was her friend Franziska. This was the same girl who had refused to report Sarah's plans to the police. Had she warned the authorities about Domina's intentions, the murder could have been prevented. By law, she could have faced up to 5 years in prison, but for some reason, all charges were dropped, and she bore no responsibility for her inaction. The main character of this story was sent not to prison, but to a psychiatric hospital. The principle behind this decision is that she will remain there until her treatment is complete. This means she could stay under observation much longer than the initial court sentence. but only if her treatment is unsuccessful or cannot be completed by psychiatrists. Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like this story if you found it interesting. And don't forget the notification bell. Thank you for watching.